Hello everyone, what's up? This is Joseph Njovo from Magic FX Studios. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's been a while since I made a tutorial. I've not really had time, project after project, and tutorials just take so much time to just put in and record. And the biggest challenge that I have is whenever, because usually I make tutorials out of the projects that I'm doing. So usually I'm doing projects for clients, and then I either have to choose to record while as I'm working so that I can just show you guys the process of what I was doing, but that is kind of like disturbing because you want to concentrate on what you're doing, having the deadline and stuff like that. So usually I can't record while as I'm working, plus it slows down the machine. So that is why I've just not been able to come out and make some tutorials. But I had a little bit of a free time, probably 2 days of free time, so I thought I should just show you how to composite a CGI monster in a shot. I'm actually asking you to stay to the end of the video. You're going to learn how to composite something in a shot that make it look like it was part of the shot. So there's a lot of useful information in this tutorial. So if you're going to find it useful, just give it a like and leave a comment below. I would really love to hear from you, and also it will help if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, so let's get started without wasting much of your time. So this is the footage that was provided to me for one of the clients that I'm working for, and it's they're a studio called Redacted Media. I think they're from the US. Yeah, they are from the US. So this is one of the footages from the movie that I'm doing, one of the shows that I'm doing for them, and they were kind enough to let me use the footage. So the first thing that we're going to do is I've already created a new composition with the same video. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to stabilize it. It was handheld shot and it's a little bit shaky, but we're not going to do a lot of stabilization, because when you want to stabilize a very shaky footage, it just kind of makes it a little bit slow. So I'm going to go to the effects window and just type in warp, and that will bring in the warp stabilizer effect. So I'll just place it on my footage and I'll just stabilize this. So like by default is set to a 50% smoothness, so I'll just set it to like 2%, and I want it to be like completely smooth. But if you make this like too extreme stabilized, or if you set the smoothness to a very high value, it just tends to make everything too like jello, kind of jello-ish. So just make sure that if your footage is too shaky, either don't stabilize it, or just set this value to a lower value, or use a gimbal to avoid all the shakiness. So just wait for it to calculate through, and while we're waiting for it, I'm just going to grab an adjustment layer, and by just clicking Ctrl-Alt-Y, and I'll just call this adjustment layer color correct. So let me just search for volumetric color effect. I place it on the adjustment layer, and I think I'll just change this to, this isn't the camera that they use to shoot this, but it's the closest conversion that I'll choose. I think I'll just go with this one, and it's just adding a little bit of some correction to the original footage, which you can see. And so the stabilization is done, and if we just play this through, it has done a little bit of some stabilization. Okay, so the footage originally it has a little bit of some noise, so I don't think you can see this unless maybe I put it to full quality. So I'm supposed to let it like the way it is, but I'll just apply a little bit of remove grain effect with just a small value. So I'll just apply that on the footage, and I'll just set it to final output, and right now it blends the heck out of everything. So I'll just apply like a smaller value. So I'll go in the noise reduction, I'll just set that to like 0.2, and it will just do a little bit of some noise reduction. So in my original footage, in my original project, the one that I did that's in the preview, I used After Effects 3D tracker to track the track the footage, but it was a pretty solid track, but I just found it a little bit of a complicated workflow than when you're using a different kind of tracker like Mocha or After Effects Point Tracker. So whenever you are faced with any sort of work, just by looking at the footage, you're able to tell what kind of tracking method will be convenient for you or for your workflow. So I figured that the 3D tracker just kind of made it a little bit of a long process for me, so I'll just use the Mocha that comes with After Effects. So I'm going to track two places. The first place I'm going to track is the background where the first monster passes, and then the second place I'm going to track is the car which the monster gets to climb on. So I'll just go to the effects panel, and I'll just go and open the Boris Mocha plugin. I'll just put it on the footage. I'll just set the resolution to half, and you can set it to 4, same thing. I'll just open up Mocha, and I'll just start. So I want to be at a place where it's a little bit zoomed out. It's a little bit either dollied out or zoomed out, and then I'll just select this part in the background. So I'll just select the mask to, I'll just select that part, and also I want to make sure that she doesn't come in the mask as the footage starts going back. So I'll just move this a little bit back, and you can see it made 2 keyframes. So I just want to delete all the keyframes since it will just destroy that. So then now it's okay. I'll just click. I'm going to untick shear because I don't want it to be there, and I'll delete this as well. So yeah, you can see it makes a new keyframe, but it doesn't matter. So let's just track backwards, and it will be a pretty quick track. So just drag it from the point where I started, and I'll just drag forward. And I don't know why I'm tracking like the whole video, because I know that the moment that the monster passes behind the pillars and behind the wall, that's like gonna be enough. It's not going to happen like for every frame, but you know, you might not know, maybe you might need some sort of a mat, so maybe that's why I tracked the whole video. Then I will close this. I'm going to create a new node object by clicking Ctrl Shift Alt Y, and that will make a new node object which I'll just call corner track. I'll click on the footage, and I'll go to tracking data. I'll create track data, and I'll just click OK. And I'll go to the export options, and I'll change it to transform, and I'll change the layer export to the node that I just made, the corner track node, and I'll just click apply. So you can see the node just jumped to that spot and is tracked to that corner. So when we need to put something else in the corner, then we have all this tracking information for the scale and the rotation. So I'll just do the same process for the track of the car. I'll just go back to the layer, and usually, since I've already pasted this to the node, I just like to reset it and just open it as a new thing. I'll just do the same thing that we did. I'll just go to the mask tool, and I'll just select the car, and since nothing is moving too crazy, the track pretty much sticks, and that's one of the advantages. So I'll just do the same. I'll start with track forward. To just check how solid these tracks are, we can just create some texts and just check how solid and great they are. So you can just test these out, you know. You don't need to, but just in case something is slipping and not tracking well, you can just test that. You can duplicate this and just call this BG, and I'll parent the BG track to the corner track, and this text to the car track, and let's just test how great this is. So you can see the scale is working and everything is working. So I'll grab all these texts and I'll just delete them. So now before we go to the fun part where we go to choose the monster that we're going to use, I just want to roto out our actress, and also I want to roto out the pillar and the wall behind. So the reason why it's good to, the reason why it was great for me to track like everything is I can use the tracking information to roto out the pillar and the wall and the car. So I'm going to start with her since our roto is a little bit long than this, and I think I'll just roto her. Then as we go, we're going to roto the rest of these out, since I don't really know the frame where this should start, but when I decide, then we can roto out the parts that we want to the monster to start appearing. So I'll just duplicate the footage and I'll call it actor roto. I'll just put it so like on top there is just okay, since we don't have any layers. And I'll just move to the beginning and I'll set this to full. And with the new After Effects, the roto brush has been like improved, so it's not that much it's not that hard to like to roto something out, especially something that's not having so much movement. So in this case, you may just have to do like a little adjustments, but usually it just like it tracks well, it tracks the body well, and you don't get to do much of the work. So like the hair part won't even matter that much, since the monsters are kind of like passing below her body. So now you can just like press the spacebar button and it will start playing through, and if you're lucky enough, it will track the body well, and you won't. So like you can see the hair part is not inside, but don't worry about that. We are not like compositing any complicated thing, like any that we call like super detailed roto. This is just something that will be quicker and passing behind her very, very, very quick. Okay, so the roto is done, so this will save us some time, and we're going to see whether we need to pre-render this or not, but for now we just let it be like this. Okay, so I'm just going to open up my browser and we'll go to Miximo and get our character, and I'm also going to show you the character that I used. So I'm just going to go on login, and this is a free site where you get free animated mockup animations. And you know, there's another site that has been just opened called Accurig, but I've never really used that before, so maybe I'm going to use it sometime. But okay, so once you log in, it brings you to an interface where you get to see a lot of animations, and I'm sure that you're going to see some of the previous animations that I had used. So I just want to show you the ones that I got and the character that I got. So this is the character that I used. So Miximo also as a character I'll call it panel, where there are a lot of pre-made characters which you can download for free and use them in your projects. So I used this one, kind of like an alien thing. I think I searched for alien. I'm not really sure what I searched for, but this is what I used. I don't think that's alien, but I think it was monster or creature, something like that. But you can just go through. It doesn't have to be this same one, this exact one that I used. It can be any character that you choose. So you can just search for anything. But I think in my case I'm going, yeah, so this is the one. So I searched for creature and so this one came. So you can see there are a lot of creatures that are there. And then you can go to the animations tab right here, and there are also different animations. So the one that I searched for was, I think it's Crawl. So crow, there are many crows that are just appearing. So if you just click on one, you see your character will start animating. And most of you know the drill already, so I don't want to bore you with the same stuff. So I think I searched for running crow, and this is one that I used for everything actually. So I'll just show you what I did to make it look different, but this is basically the one that I used. So you of course, if you want a different character, you can, just like I said, you can choose a different one. In my case, I'm not sure if I'll proceed with this one, but because like I already have it downloaded on my computer, so I don't know whether I need to use this one or not. But this one kind of looks a little bit scary and is sinking in the floor, but that's not a big deal. Maybe I can just download this one again, just see the one that will work better. But in my case, I really loved the one that I used before, but I can get this one as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to like export a still frame from this frame, and I just want to use it as a reference to set up the lights in the scene. And also what I noticed is it doesn't really matter how accurate you place the lights, since the only visible monster that will be visible for quite a few seconds on the screen is the one that appears on the car, and is also kind of like in the dark, like considering like where the car is it's not like fully lit, so it's like lit from the bottom, and on the top it's not like really lit. And looking at this light right here, it's not on top of the car, it's somewhere way behind the car. So that's why you can see the light shining from here and not from somewhere here. So the shadow is pushing back, meaning the light is way in the distance. So I'll just go to file and I'll just create a still frame. I'll just save that still frame. Okay, I'll just go to Cinema 4D, and I'm using the R20 version, pretty old version, still comfortable with it. I'm going to create a new material. I'll go in the color channel and I'm going to import that still frame, and I'm going to place it on a background. So I'll go to create a background and I'll just place that material on the background. So you can see the grid isn't lining with the, and this isn't like, it doesn't matter at all, like that, like at all, like it doesn't really matter. We are not trying to follow how, like we're not trying to like be accurate and stuff like that. So I'll just create a camera, quickly look through the camera, and I'll just set a protection tag so it doesn't move, and then I'll just look off the camera. So I'm going to import our character, so I'll just go open, and I'm not sure why, like you can see when you import something, the textures are not like looking great. So you have to go to the material and go to the editor and then just change the texture preview size to no scaling, so that will just show you the original material, which is high res, and then there's the normal and the reflectance. So I'll just hide the bones. So one of the things that you're going to notice is the animation is pretty short and the creature is moving. We don't want it to move at all. We want it to stay in the same place but have the animation movement, because when it moves it will be hard to loop it. So what I did is I'm just going to like click on the creature. So I'll just rename this to creature, and I'll just right click on the first. So like this is the main bone, which is like driving the rest of the bones to move in the right direction. So you can see it's one that's making it like move. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this first one, like not everything but just this first one. Then I'll go to all the keyframes, the position keyframes. I highlight them like that, then just right click and go to animation and then delete track. And then I'll just do the same with the rotation one. So basically I want to edit all the keyframes on this one, and it will just make it not move forward, but it will move the legs and the rest of the stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going now to click on the creature right here. I'll right click and I'll just go to bake as alembic. So when I bake this as alembic, it will just bake it. it would be, so if I hide the original, it's this baked version but it's still moving. So the great part about baking this as Alembic is now I can loop the animation. So I'll try to set this to like to like 120 frames, and now if I move, it's ending at 20, but if I go the creature and I go to the animation right here and change the mode from play to loop, it'll just like loop it throughout the whole animation. So it's a good part, and the animation loops pretty well, so you can't like see how bad it is. So then if you want now, you can go on top and add extra animation, but we're not going to do that as well. So just copy this creature in our project right there. So you can see right now, if we look to the camera, it's not facing the right way, so just click on it and we're going to rotate it to face the right way. So we want it to appear somewhere in the background, so we're going to create a flow, and you can see it's sinking in the flow, but again it won't matter that much since it's going to be moving pretty fast and it's going to be like most of it will be blurred. So I'll just rotate the flow a little bit like this, just so that we can have some part of the feet to interact with the flow. Since the way it's positioned, you can't really see the feet being attached to the flow. And then I'll just move it down like that. And I know it looks pretty weird right now, but we're going to fix it soon. So I'll just put this here and I'll rotate it a little bit like that. So now it kind of touches the ground with the feet, and again not everything will be visible that much, so you don't need to worry that much. I'll just rotate it again and lift it up a bit. So now what I'm going to do is, since the flow is already there, I'll just select both. I'm going to lift up a little bit so it can appear to be at that space, since this would be like the original size of it. So I'll just try to move everything again somewhere there. So now that's what we have. Okay, so no movement at all, no motion, nothing. That's just what we have. So let's create our lights. So for our lights, we're going to create like 2 lights. So the first one, I want it to come from the actually we are going to create 3, which is one from here, one from here, and one from here. So I'll set this one. So what you can see is this one is a little bit closer to this car, so meaning it's a little bit further away from the pillars. This one is almost in the same position with the pillars, and then this monster and the size and everything, we are assuming that is somewhere where the pillars are right now, so which is where this light is. So we are assuming this light is almost where the pillars are, so we're going to put it just right there, lift it up a little bit, and we're going to change its colors to something a little bit of some yellowish and orangish to just match where it is. And then I'll create a second light which is going to be somewhere near this car, so I'll move it in this space. So we're going to assume this is coming from here, and I'm just doing this by eye. And since this light is pretty far from where the monster is, I'm going to just change the brightness a little bit, so it just has to be like a few lights since it's a little bit far away. And we're going to also change the colors for that. Now I'm going to get the last one, which is going to be coming from the top of that car, so it doesn't have to be, it has to be a little bit further away from it, and you can see that's the effect that it has. So change the color to that one and change the opacity since it's a little bit far away as well. Right now all the lights don't have any shadows, so we're going to select all the lights and we'll change the shadows to retraced hard shadows. And I know the shadows in this shot are not hard shadows, they are like soft shadows, but retraced hard shadows just worked well for me in my case. So to preview better how the shadows are looking, just right click on the floor, go to Cinema 4D tags and compositing, then just click on compositing background and also click on the other one. So if we go in the render settings and turn on motion turn on global illumination, not motion blur, and just, you know, change the settings to low since we're just previewing this. Now we're going to see the shadows render on the background, and you can see how it takes some time to calculate, and you can see how they look. So let's just try to change the shadows to soft. And again, in my case, the retrace had worked a little bit better for me, but we might be able to change this so you can see how the soft shadows look like and how the creature looks like. So there's this sky that I downloaded, HDRI. I downloaded it from Poly Heaven. So I'll just put this on my sky. So you can like either choose to use this, but you can either choose to use lights and in combination with the sky. So if I just increase the resolution, you can see how it looks. So I can choose a part that looks similar with the shot, maybe somewhere like here, and this might be a little bit brighter, but it has got similar colors and lighting. So I can go to the compositing and change this to turn off scene camera, and you can see the colors are a little bit greenish compared to the footage. So I can go to the luminance and put it in the filter, and I can just change the hue to something that is a little bit like warmer, like the shot. So something somewhere there. And now if I preview this, you can see how this light affects like everything. So like there are a lot of lights and the shadows are a little bit better, but like all this doesn't really matter. These are just options that I'm giving you how you can do all this. So if I turn off all the lights and just have the sky, it'll have a certain look to it and it matches this. But though the shadows are harsh, we can change those in post and just make it look better. So one last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just, I won't use the sky, but it looks better for this. I'm going to make one more light, which is going to be like the bottom few lights, like the bounce light, since like when the light hits the floor, it bounces off. So whatever that is going to be on the floor will have the light bouncing off onto it. So I'll just create, this will just be a bounce light, change the color to the bounce of the floor, and then just reduce the opacity so it doesn't have to be like really dark, and it will have just the light bouncing from the floor. And I can increase the opacity, the brightness again. So that's how it looks like. So you're having some light bounce, and you know, looks great. Okay, so we're done with this. So how do we export this with the shadows and everything? So I'm going to show you a trick that I like using in my first project. So I don't get to use this unless it's the last option. So don't use this. There are better ways to render separate shadows, like using multi-passes. So multi-passes, you're going to render the shadows, the reflections, and the speculars separately. Then you use those, but we're not going to do that. I'll just show you a quick method that I like to use. So I like to create a material and check off everything apart from the color, and just increase the brightness, and a little bit of the diffuse fall off so it's a little bit brighter. Then I just love to change this to something like a blue color, so like a really blue color. So like this, since this has got a little bit of some green, I can make this green. I'll just put this on the floor, and I'll go to the compositing tag, and I'll just uncheck scene by, like I'll uncheck all these, and then the blue won't be able to reflect. So you can see like it almost reflects in everything, but it's not. So I'll just untick everything. It won't be there anymore, so you can't see it anymore. And then we can just go maybe to ambient occlusion and turn it on as well, which will just make the contact shadows a little bit strong. So that's that. We'll turn off the background and we'll render 100 and actually we'll just render like 90 frames for this. So that's what we're going to just render out. We won't do much, just this. Yeah, okay, so I've rendered a few frames for quite a few frames. I didn't like render the whole 90 frames, but since we don't need like a lot, now we're going to do the slow version of the same character which appears on top of the car. So how I did this is actually very simple. So I'll just rename this to slow, and it's funny how you get to do some things in a way that you like wouldn't even expect something to be done. So I'll just grab the slow version of this. So I'm going to get this monster, and I'll just switch this on, and I'll rotate it to face this side, and I'm going to turn off the flow. We're not going to need the shadows in this shot, and I'm going to make it stand face up like this. And so I use the same animation, I just slowed it down, and it's funny how it just like worked. So I hope this is going to work as well, since this is a different kind of model from the one that I'd used. So I'm going to click on the monster, and I will go to speed. I'll just change the speed to 20, which is what I'd used for my shot. So now if I play this, you can see how slowly it moves, and we want this to be like pretty slow, so I'll change this to like 8. So now it's like really slow. So we're going to use this to look like it's like crawling from the side of the car to the top. So I'll make this like 100 frames. No, I'll make this like 150 frames. We may need a lot of frames for this. And then you're going to see why we need a lot of frames just once we render it out. So it's still looping as well, but it's just slow, and it just looks like it's, you know, like it's swimming. Funny. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this creature again, and I'll just call this eyes creature, and this is what we're going to use for the eyes of the creature, for the glowy eyes of the creature. And I'm going to hide the original, and I'll just hit C. I'm going to make it editable by hitting C. And the good part about like Cinema 4D R20 going up is whenever you make an Alembic file editable, you can still like see the polygons and add things that you want to add on top of it. That's the good part, and it will still have the animation on top of that. So that's like a very good feature that we got. So I'm going to zoom in the eyes, and I'm going to create some selection tags for the eyes, so we can apply that glowy red material. So I'll just select this circle right here, and I'm just selecting like a bigger part, since I don't know what will be visible and what like how visible it will be based on how far it is away from the camera. So just select that part, and I'll select this part as well. So then I can go and select and go to set selection, so that will give us the selection for that part. And now if I create like a red material, I can throw it on the creature, and I can grab that selection tag, and it will only apply it to that part. And I want the rest of the body to be black. I don't want it to have the color. So what I'll do is I'll click on the monster, since it's already having the selection tags. I'll just go to say select. I'll just invert that, so it will give us the rest of the body. I'll just create another selection. So I'll duplicate the material, and I'll make this completely black, and I'll just remove, or I can just like delete the material and just put it there and grab the second selection. So now the rest of the monster is black, and then the eyes are glowing. So now we're going to have those like glowy eyes, and we're going to have the original, which is having all the textures. So we're going to render this out without the background. Then I'll render the eyes as well. Then we're going to meet in After Effects. So this is all we need for this. We don't need anything more for this. Just this is enough. And then once the render is finished, we're going to see you in After Effects. Okay, so all the renders are done. So I've just brought them into After Effects, and I've just given them names. So the one that just gets to crawl, the one that we did, I just called it the Blare Monster, since it's just been blared. Then the slow-mo one is the car monster. then the eyes, of course, for the car monster. So we're going to start with the blur monster, of course. So I want to figure out the place where I want it to appear. So I want it to pass somewhere from around this frame. I'm just going to bring it, and of course we're going to put it behind the rotor. So and we're going to give this a different color because I want it to stand out a little bit. Okay, so just move it, just switch to the selection to move it to the side, and I'll just carry it up. Okay, just like that. And we're going to grab the key light effect, and when we key out the blue, it will just leave out the monster and the shadows. And again, like I said, this isn't the best way to do this because sometimes there's need to color correct the shadows alone separately, and but in this case this is going to be like really quick, so I don't really mind doing it this way. So I'm just going to go to the screen mat and make sure that everything is keyed out perfectly and that isn't leaving out anything. So everything seems to be okay. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to grab the selective color. I just want, actually I'm going to use a hue saturation. I just want to reduce some of the reds because right now there isn't much contrast in the shot. So I'll just change this to red and just drop the saturation a bit and the lightness, just like that. Maybe I can bring the saturation by the lightness. I just want to make it a little bit not like too crazy. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to what we're going to start doing, because this will be like the compositing part, making this monster look like it's in the background, like it belongs in the shot. So before we animate it to like pass through the camera, actually let's animate it because that will help us know the duration, since we haven't really like rotated the pillar and the wall and the car yet. So once we animate this, it will give us some it will make us know how long we should keep the rotor layers, because they don't have to be really long since it's passing really quick. So let's just animate that to pass by the camera. Okay, so I'm going to click on P to bring up the position, and I'll just move it off the screen. And you can see we have a little bit of some red and some black stuff, and I'm sure that's just coming from the settings. So I'll just try to leave it right now, then we'll just fix it later by just a simple mask. So bring this the beginning and move it off frame, click on P, move a few frames forward and push it across the screen. So what's going to happen is we're going to tell how fast we want this to be or how slow we want it to be based on how it looks. So if we just play this through, and again you can see it's appearing already on frame, so just play this through. You can see it just passing by the camera, and right now it's not really tracked in the shot yet, so it's just passing looking like that. So we'll see how slow I want it to be. So we're going to parent it to the corner track, which is the no that the no right there. So we parent it to the corner track, no, and it will just track with the camera. So right now that's kind of how it looks. So if you want it to be a little bit slower, we just extend the keyframe and it will move a little bit slower like that. And right now it's not integrated in the shot. Let's turn on motion blur and see how it looks. So I'm going to make this start a little bit quicker then it's starting right now, so that we can just leave some space for the monster that's coming behind the car. So that's the first thing that we so you can see how that looks. I think the speed looks fine for me, because I think that it even looks a little bit slower, but anyway, that's kind of how it looks like. So I'll turn off the motion blur and I'll just zoom in to start integrating this a little bit more in the shot. So I'll just change this to half res so we can see it better. So first thing that we need is the colors. They don't match. So what we're going to do to have the colors, the background colors match better, is we're going to duplicate the monster layer, and we're going to go to the effects and search for fill, and we'll just fill this with a white color. So that's kind of how it looks, and we're going to call this monster fill, and we're going to create a new solid, which will be the same color as the background. But now think about it, I think I'm just going to make this a little bit simpler than I did before. So instead of like using a matte, I'll just like use the same fill color. So I'll just grab the white color and I'll just choose one of the colors from the background, which is like this greenish tint. Yeah, so any of those colors. And now if I drop the opacity a little bit, it will start giving us the colors that are in the background. But let me just switch this off before I start doing any of these. I want to grab a levels, put it on the main layer of the monster. I just want to lift up the shadows a little bit, just so like they're not too black, so you can see the before and after. Then when I turn on the fill layer, you can now see that it's so the amount of the opacity will determine how it looks. So right now it's beginning to look a little bit integrated in the shot just by adding that color. And if it doesn't look really right, we can change the tint of the color, or how powerful it is, or how saturated or desaturated it is. So it's up to you, because like looking at the reference in the shot, looking at the shadows in the lady's hair, they're not black, so they're having like this brownish greenish tint like everywhere. If you look at the car, same thing, the shadows are not black, so we need to like get that same effect. So you know, by just playing with the colors from the fill layer, so it will help you a lot. Okay, next thing is we're going to add some camera lens blur to this. So I'm going to grab the camera lens blur effect, I'll put it on the monster layer, and then I'll just switch off the fill layer. And again, the disadvantage of doing this is because I would have to blur like every layer and stuff, but anyway, it still works. So by default it's set to 5 pixels, which is like the radius of the blur. And I'm not sure if this matches, but you can tell by eye, by just zooming in, if this matches or not. So the original blur, the way it blurs things, the original camera lens blur, the more it blurs pixels, like these hot pixels, they kind of like brighten up as it blurs them. They brighten up and they go like more round, so it creates like this bokeh effect. I think that's what it's called. So we're going to try to create that. So I'll just switch this on. So you can see in the monster layer there aren't like any highlights in the blurred layer, so we just change this to like octagon, or like any of these. You can just play through them, and then you can increase the roundness. So you can see as I increase the roundness, it begins to create the same bokeh effect. And if I increase the gain, it has to start like the more the blurry the pixels, the hot pixels are supposed to be like hot, and the highlight is supposed to like go up as it blurs, so you can see those highlights. Like that's how a real camera works. When you blur stuff, they just kind of like, they are more highlighted as they blur. So by playing with the threshold, you can bring in the highlights, and maybe the blur is kind of a bit too much, so I'll set it maybe to 4. I don't know, maybe 4.5 or 4.4. Yeah, so it kind of looks okay to me. Then I'm going to bring in the fill layer, and I'll just copy the lens blur and I'll paste it on the fill layer. And I don't know if that worked. Did it work? Nope. Paste it. Okay, so now you can see how it's looking in the background. So just like by zooming out, it will give you an idea whether this integrates well or not. I think I'll bring down the opacity just a little bit, because again, whatever that is in the shot is a perfect reference for what you're supposed to do. So every shadow in the shot, that's how, like, that's your reference. So it will help you know how you're supposed to, where the limit is supposed to be. So I think I'll just bring it down a little bit again, because I'm looking at the shadows in the background and how it's supposed to be. So just by adding this layer, you can see how it brings out the realism to that. So now it looks better, like it's part of the background. Cool. So if we turn on the motion blur, it will look even better now, since it's been integrated a little bit more. So turn on the motion blur for both. Now it looks better. Now we can tell it looks like it's part of the pillar. It looks like it's part of the shot. We're not exaggerating anything. Everything looks like it's part of the shot. So you can see the highlight. The light is right there, so the highlight is there. So even though this is not so detailed, but at least you can see that it's beginning to blend in the shot. So now the most important detail right now is the grain, which we don't have. So I'll switch off the motion blur and I'll turn off the fill layer. I'm going to put this to full resolution, and right now if you look at the original footage, I don't know if you can see this with the like YouTube compression and stuff, but the background color has a little bit of some grain, which this monster doesn't have right now, and we need to have the grain on the monster so it blends well. So we're going to search for match grain effect, apply it on the monster, and we're going to get the layer from the main footage. So just going to change this to final output, and right now it really looks ridiculous, so we're going to change this to main footage, and it will just go back to normal. And right now I'm sure you can't see anything, but it adds some grain on top, so it kind of matches this really well, so you can see. And if the intensity isn't that much, you can try to match the intensity for the grain in the intensity. So you can just maybe put this to 1.3, and you can see it kind of looks a little bit intense. And you can play with the size and the softness. So you can change the softness to like 1.2, and I think this matches pretty well. I don't know if you can see this, but there's like an integration that like comes from here and it flows all the way from there to here. So I'll just copy this match grain effect and I'll paste it on the fill layer, and it will add it to that fill layer. So now this looks like it's really there because the grain is there and stuff. And still looking at the shadows, they look a little bit too intense for my liking, so just a matter of tweaking the layers. Yeah, great. So I'll change this back to half res and turn on the motion blur, and that looks great. It looks epic. I love it. I will just save a copy in case something goes wrong. I don't lose my work. So now we know that the pillar, we only need the rotor for a few frames, so we know that we need it from here to here. So like we don't need the whole part. So but we're gonna create a solid and call this pillar matte, and you can maybe change the color so they don't get confusing, and you can just draw this solid on exactly where the pillar is. So I'll just zoom in and just set this to full, and I can just create a mask following where the pillar is. Just make it a bit precise, and it's kind of a little bit of a challenge because there's this depth of field, so it's making the edges extended and a little bit like visible and like transparent and extended. So if I parent this to the corner track, the mask doesn't get to move that much, and it saves you time to like roto and stuff. So instead you're going to use this. So now if I bring this monster back, I can use this same layer as a matte, so I can just duplicate it. I can place it on top of the monster, hide this, and I can just change this to alpha matte or inverted. I think it's inverted. Yeah, so it'll go behind. And if I just give it the feathering of 2 pixels, or in this case I think it should be a little bit much. Yeah, so you can see it goes behind. I can just feather it even more. So now it saves you the time to, you know, like having to adjust the mask for like every frame and stuff. Then I'll just delete this first one, duplicate this one, put it on top of the fill layer, which is this one, and want this to go behind as well. So we set this to alpha inverted matte as well. So now we have masked this behind the pillars without having much trouble. So turn on the act as roto, and now it will pass behind. So we'll do the same for the car. You know, we're going to do the same for the car. We'll create a solid, make it a blue color just so it looks a bit different, and we'll call this I knew that would happen. Make it from the top, call this car matte, and just scale it a little bit so it doesn't go off frame at any point. So just do the same thing, just zoom in and just make some detail mask along the car. So just click here and drag so it creates like a curve thing. Do the same thing here and just highlight where the car is and bring the mask below the tires. And we also want that bottom part to be visible, so we want to mask that out as well. Since the monster is going to be passing behind, we want it to also be visible in these areas, and then just highlight where the tires are. And at this point it doesn't have to be really like accurate, but only in parts where at corners, like here. So in here you might want to make it a little bit precise, and just make a curve right there, and just so I'll get this parented to the car track now, and I'm sure I'm going to make a few adjustments in the mask, but they're not going to be that much. So just in case, I'm going to create a mask path, and I know if I move forward the mask might move a little bit, but not that much. So you can see it just moved a bit. So just a matter of going in and adjusting those keyframes. But I can assure you, if we didn't have this tracked to the shot, it would be a nightmare to rotor the car out. Okay, so I've done just a quick masking, and if there's need to adjust anywhere, we're going to adjust that as we go. But I really hate roto, and I don't think anyone else loves it. Like nobody loves rotoscoping. It's hell. Okay. So we have that comma extracting the shot. So we're going to, now here is where the challenge comes in. So you can see we want the same monster to go on top of the car, right? So how are we going to do this? How do we have the car on top without like really rotoring the car? So it's actually very simple. Since we already have this mask, we're just going to duplicate the footage, and we're just going to put it below the mask, and we just call this car roto, and this is the car matte, of course. So if we solo this, we can do the same thing. We can set this to alpha matte, and it will just leave the car alone. So we're going, if we put it on top of everything, it will be easier to just mask them out, or it will be easier for them to go behind since the car is on top. So now if those monsters pass by the camera, and they're just gonna go behind the car. So if I just play this through, you can see them going behind the car, and immediately it just goes behind the car. We want to cut the layers to just end right there, since we don't want them to like appear from anywhere else. So they just pass and we just go behind the car. So let me just make this a bit bigger for you guys to see. So you can see that's how it looks. Let's go to this monster, the second one. I'll extend this, and I want to give it some time. When it goes behind the car, of course it needs time to climb up and then just appear from behind the car. So we'll adjust it as we go. Let me bring this up to here, and you can see it looks nothing like something that is supposed to be on top of the car. It's just there. It doesn't look anything like something that's supposed to be. So first things, I'm going to track it to parent it to the car track, so it sticks, it moves with the shot. So you can see it's tracking. I'll kind of try and repeat the same of the process of what we have talked about. It's kind of hard to say the word process when you are speaking in a hurry. I'll start with hue and saturation. Just turn down the reds. Saturation, just like that. I'm going to duplicate the same thing that we did. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to get a fill layer for it, and I'll change it to the same color for the background, and then just pretty much the whole thing that we were doing before. I'll just reduce the opacity, and if you look at this area, the colors in the background are a little bit different with the one, so just like try to choose the colors that match. Let's animate the monster to come from off frame from the car to where it is right now. So this will be done by a simple position keyframe. So we just set the first position keyframe where so we set the first position keyframe, move this, because this is like the end position, so just move it to this part, and we just right click on the keyframe and set it to easy ease. And then the first keyframe now, where it's supposed to be hiding from away, is going to be off the car. So if we play this, I'm sure it will come out a little bit faster, but we're going to adjust it. So let's just take a quick preview and see how this looks. Because remember, it's not supposed to look like it's coming out like really fast. And I know you might be wondering why I didn't do this in Cinema 4D. Again, like I said before, if you remember, I talked about a certain workflow that you get to choose whenever you're doing any projects. There are many ways to do something, giving you the same result. So it doesn't have to be like always the way that you know. So there are many ways that you can do this, that you can bring out the same result, and then just like do it differently. So I think the speed isn't that bad. Yeah, I think the speed is okay. But right now, the only problem that I'm having is the frames aren't that much enough. So I might do what I did before by like slowing it down, or I can just go render more frames. And again, I don't think the final position is okay for me. Let me put it here, because it looks like as it progresses, it goes up even more. So I'm rendering more frames inside of Cinema 4D. So as I'm rendering, I'll keep on readjusting this. So right now, like the other half of the monster is supposed to have like a fall off, like a black fall off, where it fades a little bit, and then it's supposed to be like a little bit in light, I think, because like if you look at the car right now, the bottom half like is lit a little bit, and then this part is like dark. So I know that they're in different position spaces, but I just want to adjust it just a little bit. So I'm going to grab a pen tool and I will create a mask on the monster, which will like sort of cut it in half like that, and I will feather it. Then I'll grab the levels effect. So there's like a way to add effect on like using masks. So you can see the way I've sliced this up into like half, then I've put like the levels effect. So if I double click, if I control double click on this levels effect, it will open up this compositing option right here below. So if I open it up, you can see there's this plus sign. So if I click on this plus sign, you can see it puts in mask 1, which is the mask that I've just drawn, and you can see the layer is back to normal. So now whatever that I do will only affect the part where the mask is. So if I want to like darken this part, it will just affect where the mask is, and you can see what I meant. So by just doing this, you can see how different it looks from the way it was looking before. It was looking too flat. So right now it looks better because the highlight of this light, and then here like there's no light, so it's not supposed to be as bright as it was. So by just adding this little adjustment, it makes it better. Okay, so now since we've done everything, let me add the eyes on top, and I'm going to have much more control when the eyes is like a separate layer than having it be blurred by the rest of the stuff. So I'll grab this, I'll duplicate it, I'll put it on top of everything, and then I'll just call this eyes, and I'll grab the eyes layer and I'll hold down Alt, then it will be replaced. So whatever is there is replaced. So I'll just remove the mask from that layer, and I will delete all the effects for now. I just want to see the eyes, and I'll apply the unmort effect, which will get rid of the black background and just leave out the eyes. And of course they need a little bit of some blur as well since they're so sharp. Or I'll just copy the same effect so that then I can adjust it from here. I'll just copy it, paste it on the eyes. So I can set a keyframe to be 0 right here, and as it goes up, you can even move it, and then you can just make it 100. So I want the eyes to look like they just, they just shine, and so like it's not on, and as it goes up, you can see the eyes just, and we can make this a little bit close so they shine a little bit quicker, they glow a little bit quicker, not shine. Okay, yeah, that looks okay, that looks cool. One more detail that we need to add is the glow for the light. So you can see the way it's supposed to be is supposed to, so if you look at the car, it's having some sort of a light trap from the light. So we're not going to use light trap in this case, we're just going to use a glow layer. So we're going to create an adjustment layer, and then we're going to call it glow. Then we will scale it up a bit again. I'm going to create a mask around the area that I would want the light to affect, so which is the top part, and I'll parent the adjustment layer to the track so it stays, so it doesn't like lose the the mask. Then I'll feather it, and now if I apply just the ordinary After Effects glow, it will even start making this blending better. So change this to half raise, and I will play with the glow radius. So just by changing the glow radius, you can see you're going to start seeing the light just interacting with the monster in the edges, and that's just kind of how it's supposed to look. But right now you can see it destroys the original glow, so you can just put this down a bit. And this isn't like the only way to add this glow to the edges. You can use the light trap effect, because like we don't want it to blow out the highlights. You can also adjust it by like bringing the threshold up. Then I can duplicate the glow, and I can bring this all the way up. And I know this almost comes back to where it was, but at least it's not as intense as it was before. So you can see this little effect bring this to like a whole new level. So the mask is going to track with the video, and there isn't going to be much adjustments needed. So just adding this simple effect, you can see how it makes this shot look. It looks great. So let's just take a quick preview and see what we have done so far. That's our preview of how it's looking like. I'm going to add an effect which adds kind of like rim light in the edges of your objects. So if I bring this up right here, you can see this effect, and you can play with the width of it. So right now I want it to be like big, and then when you go all the way down, you see the light reception. So by default it's set to add, so you can set it to composite or cut out, but right now I want a cutout, just a cutout of this. I don't want it to like be like everything, so I just want it to be a cutout. I'll duplicate the matte. I'll call this edge matte. I'll put it on top, and I'll set this to same inverted. And if I bring the original monster, this is actually supposed to be on the bottom of the monster, not on top, so I'll put it below the car monster, and you can see that rim light. Then we'll go frame by frame and keyframe the opacity. So this is the sweep edge, sweep, sweep, sweep. We'll go frame by frame and keyframe the opacity. So right now it gets off, so we'll say it's off right now. We'll set the first keyframe, and we'll go frames forward. We'll bring it up maybe to 100. We'll go more frames, and we'll set another keyframe. We'll bring it a bit down, and we'll bring it down, because you can see it also affects the edges of the lady, so we expect that light wrap to also affect the edges of the monster. So can increase it, and right now it's 0, and again it goes back to up, and it's not right now, it's kind of just like white, so I want it to be a little bit orange yellowish, so you can give it an orange tint. Yeah, so I can get an orange tint, and right now I'm feeling like it's not too powerful, so I can increase the intensity, and it's set to sharp, which is okay. So right now you can see it's affecting the edges, and still on, so it goes a little bit down, and it ends just like that. So we're going to have the light flicker on the edges as well, which is just a subtle detail which people can't even think of adding, but it takes the whole thing like to to a higher level, where it's details like this that just make the shot great and work without even realizing that you had done this to make the shot work. Yeah, so I think it should be 0, so it will just flicker, so you can see how it flickers and how good it looks. So we'll just do a preview for everything. We'll see our work and what we have done. Okay, so if you just play that through, it's not at full quality, but you're able to see how it's looking. So that's our work, what we have been able to do, and yeah, it looks great. I think slapping a little color grade on top will do the work, because like these things, the way they work, you do it, then as you play it through, maybe you might notice a few more things that you need to adjust, and you just keep making it look great. But basically, some of the things we've talked about are like the key elements in trying to composite something in your shot. And had it been a close-up shot, then it would have needed like so much detail, but this is like a background shot where it just shows something's about to happen. And there's a little detail that I did as well in my original. I don't know if you'd want to see that, but I think it counts. So what I did was I was trying to move layers around, and by accident I moved one of the layers, and surprisingly it gave me a cool effect that I wasn't expecting to be there. So this is the fill layer for the Blair monster. So I'm going to duplicate both these layers, and I'm going to offset this layer's position. So instead of making it this original position, I'll make it a little bit slower so it drags behind a bit, and also make it start a little bit later. So it just gave it a feel or a look of kind of like a trail thingy. So when I play it, it kind of made it look like dust and a trail as well, which just made it look cool. And also I'll duplicate one more time, give it a different color, and I'll just make this a little bit darker. So I'll make this start a bit earlier than the original layer, so it will start a bit earlier, and instead of being that color I can make it dark. So it's supposed to be like appearing in front of the monster, so I think that's too much. I want it to be somewhere there, and I want the opacity for it to be a little bit visible as well, so it will create like this trail effect. And you can see the blur isn't that much, but we can increase we can put the keyframes together, and that will just make it more blurred. So I want it to be somewhere there, and I think those are some of the things I did. It gave it the look of kind of like shadow monster, but also like a trail thing. So play with the colors, and I think it's dragging just a little bit too far. And if this plays faster, it just looks cool, as you can see. So it just plays through. I can just loop this part. You can see it sort of looks like dust, and this also looks cool, like a kind of like a trail shadow monster thingy. And yeah, I was quick to do this, but I spent a little bit of some time on my version, and it just looked like very good. So just spend so much time on yours and make it great looking. Duplicate it even more. You can make this drag behind, so it creates like more kind of traily looks. And you can change the color as well. It doesn't have to look the same. Yeah, so it just kind of looks like a dust trail or something like that, but it looks cool anyway. So also gives you the look where you don't really know what's passing behind, because it has all these weird stuff, trails going behind it. And if I wanted to take it even further, I would create a displacement map for the things passing behind, so it displaces the background as it passes. But anyway, so I'm going to select all the layers by clicking Ctrl A and clicking Ctrl Shift C to pre-compose, and just call this all. So what I'm going to do on these all layers is I'm going to add another glow on top of everything, and I'll just bring it up, and I'll bring this up, and I'll bring the intensity down. And what I can do is I can change this to screen, so it won't make it too blown out, but it will have like a beautiful glow around. And what I can do is I can go inside this layer and I can copy these screen bars and instead put them outside, so that everything that I'm adding in is below. So it's, you know, it's just one of those final attachments that you put in your shots to just make it blend in. And if you feel it's too much, you can always bring the glow down, or so it's affecting the most glowy parts. And I just love how the light wraps around everything, making it really integrated well in the shot. I also want to add a camera shake, not necessary to add in, but I want to add it in at the point where they pass on the camera. So I'll just click on S, scale the footage a little bit up, click on P, I'll click on P to set the first position keyframe. Then when they pass on the camera, I'll set another keyframe. I'll just select both of them, and I'll go to Windows and I'll open up the wiggler. So I want this to be like 8, and I want this to be 5. I think it's okay. So I'm going to have some camera shake when they pass on the camera, and it doesn't have to be much, but it will add some impact. And don't make it too intense, like it's a spaceship passing behind her or exploding, like it has to be. So starting from here, so I'll delete all the keyframes from here, then delete the last one. So it just for a few frames, so just on that particular point where they pass, it just adds this, and you can't see it, but it's actually there. So yeah. And I think that's it for the tour, guys. I'm so glad that you stayed to the end. For those of you who made it up to this end, I'm sure that you have learned a lot of stuff, and I really wish that I had so much, like all the time in the world, to be doing tutorials every week like I was doing before. I could do tutorials after 2 days. I could do tutorials after a day, but things are just so tight right now in the schedule. The time frame doesn't allow me to do that. Yeah, but I'm so glad that you got to stay at the end of the video. If you like the video, please give it a like, and a subscribe will mean a lot to me, and a comment actually will mean a lot to me. So it just helps me know that there are people out there supporting me than you just watching it and just clicking away without saying anything. If you say something, even just saying this tutorial is good, it's helpful to me to know that my time wasn't spent in vain, and that I helped a soul out there. So thank you so much, guys. I'll see you next time. This is Joseph Njo from Magic Effects Studios. Never stop learning.